You want to know why some of them come back? Because they have unfinished business. We Bury the Dead was written, produced, and directed by Zach Hilditch, who did the actress. It doesn't matter who she is, where she's been, what she's done, as long as she's an actress. Actually, it's a film called The Actress, but you can do as many actresses as you want. I'm not here to judge. Just have a Rolodex where you just have, I'll have Susan on Monday, and Edith on Thursday. Are there any Ediths left in the goddamn world? Anyways, so Zach Hilditch also did These Final Hours and 1922. Actually, These Final Hours would be somewhere around 2359. Not like 1459, the Sugar Ray album. Who remembers Sugar Ray? Let me know in the comments. Boy, their career falls apart, and there it's gone. And something is waiting, run away to the rattlesnake. Give me a hell yeah. And if you're Jeannie Clark or Deborah, run away. Run away to save your life. So anyway, We Bury the Dead was the final Regal mystery movie of 2025. It's actually getting released in the very beginning of 2026, so we are fast approaching. And honestly, with how this year has gone, even though it has been somewhat decent for the most part, everybody has ups and downs all around. Come on, defense work as far as years. You know what? Kind of going to be interested to see how 2026 goes. So that's why I'm reviewing this film now, because I decided to plunk down my money, go to my local Regal cinema that I used to work at almost 20 years ago, and decided to watch this film where, well, a U.S. government experimental pulse blast hit Tasmania, not to be confused with the cartoon Tasmania, not the Tasmanian Devil, not Bugs Bunny trying to outsmart the Tasmanian Devil, not the Tasmania Devil from Tiny, We're Toony, We're All a Little Loony. Is this review going off the rails? Oh, you fucking bet. But now the song is met? No, that's not how that works. So anyway, an experimental pulse blast has killed a bunch of people in Tasmania. And essentially, the military is trying to pick up the pieces, as far as locals and even flying people in, including Ava, played by the very gifted and very, very gorgeous Daisy Ridley. I will watch just about anything Daisy Ridley is in. And she is searching for her missing husband, Mitch, played by Matt Wellen, who was in The Tank. That was a nice idea at first, because he was at a work retreat in an area that it turns out is actually quarantined. So she wants to get to that, but in the meantime and in between time, she has to help clean up bodies. So basically, it's just cleaning up the dead, except some of them are actually coming back. Hence, We Bury the Dead. Obviously, you just could be putting them in a goddamn big hole and everything and poking them with a stick. I don't want to be in Australia today. But some of them are coming back, mostly slow and confused. But if any of them do come back, you got to make sure you alert the military and they will send them on their way. I wonder what that means. I think you know. Then it also turns out that as more come back, yeah, maybe they aren't just slow and confused. Maybe some are going to get a little more aggressive, and it's a new spin on the undead zombie subgenre, as opposed to the very much dead zombie subgenre. It's actually more psychological drama horror and trauma horror than anything else, as everybody seems to be dealing with their own portions of grief. Specifically Ava, who probably has an idea that her husband is dead, but she still wants to go and try to see if somehow he might have survived. Now, I will say that I didn't know anything about this movie beyond seeing that it came out, a little bit, a little bit after this. Like I said, the very beginning of 2026. I do know that Vertical Entertainment had something to do with it. Vertical Films, whatever the fuck you want to call them. They've had a weird track record. They did Your Monster, and they've done other stuff that I've somewhat enjoyed, but they've also done some really dog shit movies. In fact, they're doing a Dracula rendition, one of about 5 million Dracula renditions that have been done since the 1930s. But in this film, it's basically, a spin on the zombie subgenre with some admittedly nice elements or some cool camera tricks and actually some nice allegories for how you would deal with trauma and some cool makeup effects. It's not a perfect movie. There are definitely issues, and familiarity often breeds not necessarily contempt, but more, oh, okay, that's where we're going. I will say there is a narrative, I'll talk about in the spoilers, that does permeate through this. It actually does factor into the finish. That was a nice little touch. I'll give him that. Again, not a perfect movie. Fun overall, with even with the familiarity issues. Daisy Ridley does help elevate this. Brenton Thwaites, all about that Thwaites. No, Gods of Egypt, because dear God, he was in Gods of Egypt. He plays Clay, who is like a wise, cracking cleaner. Hey, cleaner, I got this. There is Riley, Ace of Spies, not Ace of Spies, played by Mark Cole-Smith, who is super fucking Australian. Just look at his filmography. And from there, we basically do have a film that has a nice setting, familiar trappings, more of a streaming movie in all honesty, but I'll be interested to see how this does in theaters. It's going to be in theaters on the 2nd. 3, 2, 1, and spoilers. How's that for a quick, jump into the spoiler section? So basically, we get flashbacks between Ava and Mitch, and it turns out they were having marital issues. First, she couldn't get pregnant. We actually start out with their wedding, and things seem to be going well, but then we see the news reports of Tasmania being flattened by an experimental pulse blast. Oh, the U.S. government. What, society, won't you crumble for no goddamn reason? And now we're going to send people to try to pick this shit up because, we fucking caused it. And yeah, basically, it just shut everybody's brains down. But some of their brains are turning back on. They're just not turning back on the full power. They don't have absolute power. But yes, Ava is looking for her husband. I will say right now, her husband is very much dead. Which I think probably is pretty obvious. I mean, even if he was at the southern tip, just the tip, he was obviously going to end up being dead. Clay ends up kind of becoming a wisecracking guy that he actually has some admittedly funny lines. He does better here, and he's allowed to do more than he was in Gods of Egypt, which, to be fair, might have actually worked if it was in the 90s, but not so much when it looked like it was just stupid green screen stuff all the time. Anyway, Ava and Clay team up for a bit. We do get a neat little thing where you need to alert the military by lighting off a flare or a smoke bomb, and then Krieger runs away, and Archer. There is a point where they're, going through these houses, bringing out the dead, bring out your dead, house undead keeping. I'll come back later. And there's one that is, kind of, looks like they're covered in motor oil, clicking along and everything. Looks like, and stairs and everything. It seems like, stuff's firing, but they're not firing back. And they're firing completely. And then at one point there's, after having some fun and everything and, getting these bodies up, and Clay seeming like he's doing pretty well. He's putting on a bit of a tough guy persona. Ava and Clay go and they find a motorcycle at this, mechanic shop because, she really wants to get to this Enzo resort. And she, is bound and determined to get to Woodbridge. And the thing is, the military doesn't really want to let that because there's a lot of these cities are literally on fire. The smoke is absolutely just permeating through, like they have a quarantine zone and they have areas they can go into, but they got to get away, from the smoke. Maybe get giant fans or a supervillain with a weather machine. Except supervillains is kind of how they ended up in this situation. It's never really explained why we bothered to do this pulse blast, except for the fact that we're all kind of dicks over here. But basically, they end up, kind of being around this compound where there's this party and stuff like that. They end up at this mechanic shop that has these cool bikes. But it seems like all these people were having a party, and there's a stripper that is very much not dead, and the stripper starts to come back, and they do the grinding of the teeth. If you don't like grinding your teeth, or you have a problem thinking you grind your teeth too much, this may not be the movie for you, because that's one of the things they do. It's like they're trying to either fire, or they're trying to figure out how to bite. Take a bite out of crime, like they're McGruff. And zombie Aussie stripper, how's it going? There we go. And then we basically get Clay agreeing to take her there. So they actually go for a bit, and they get a full tank of gas in this cool, motor trikey, and they're going along. And then they see military coming down, so they hide off. You would think that even though that thing was, or the person was hundreds of yards away, they might have been able to see it, but nevertheless. Then they see in this farmland area, there's this one guy that's wandering along, looks like he's got an arm missing. Boom, they shoot him. Military guy, and I believe it was Riley, if I recall correctly. If it wasn't Riley, then it was somebody that looked like him. So they continue to go on. They go to this gas and food place. And they're going to possibly, by the way, you can eat the food. If it's not spoiled, you can drink the water. And that's not irradiated. Everybody's just fucked. But while she's trying to fix his shoulder because she's a physical therapist, and he had mentioned about that before, boom, 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 kind of fixes that. We see a shadow or a silhouette there, and it's Carrie Von Erich as a zombie. I'm sorry, they just have a foot that's hanging off. So it's zombie motorcycle Carrie Von Erich. I can work a Von Erich reference into anything. Then Riley ends up showing up, and he kind of separates both of them because they're not supposed to be in the quarantine zones. They're going to be court-martialed. I think you guys probably should worry more about the dead bodies and the potential zombie apocalypse instead of court-martialing people that are doing this, but it's fine. Clay ends up escaping completely, just taken off. Riley agrees to take her. They grant her safe passage to Woodbridge, easy for me to say, but first they got to go to a place that he knows about. And it turns out this place actually is the place that his wife's parents were at when the blast happened, and they were just about to welcome their child into the world. And that's another overrunning theme. Ava couldn't get pregnant. I don't know if that led to her and Mitch having issues. I think it was probably the cheating that did that, because that's revealed a little bit later on. But Riley just at first seems okay, and then it starts to become more obvious that things are a little more unhinged. They keep showing, the keys on the counter, like we're gonna get a run for the keys at some point. And he mentioned we were just about to welcome our kid into the world, and I had to bury them at out by a great old tree where Carrie did the deed. I'm sorry. Again, I will stop making Von Erich jokes one of these days. I don't think the Von Erichs ever wrestled in Australia. But that being said, he will grant her safe passage to Woodbridge if she does something for him. He never got to say goodbye to his wife. So now she needs to dress up like his wife. Spray the perfume, all that stuff, but she refuses to take her wedding ring off. They do a dance. They don't make a little love. They don't get down tonight, but the song she's listening to in the earbud reminds her of her own wedding. And that kind of correlates with all this stuff going on. And it's actually a fairly well done scene, if not a little bit odd. But, he just wanted to hear like the baby's heartbeat and that kind of stuff and hear it. But, but Mitch is playing, is saying this stuff, and it's weird. And Riley's like, well, we got to do it again, but you got to wear my wedding ring, or her wedding ring. You got to do this. Well, let's just do it again. It's clearly, evident that he is off his tits. And then she decides to make a run for it. She had grabbed a pair of scissors, by the way, but she smashed them over his head instead. She decides to make a run for it into a room and turns around, and it's the wife. The wife is very much not buried, the pregnant wife. And he says, she's going to have her baby, and the baby's going to be okay. Yeah, that's a little bit unhinged. It's kind of like Dawn of the Dead 2004. Except Riley's more intelligent than Mekhi Phifer. I don't remember his name, and I just retro-reviewed that movie a few months ago. But that being said, she manages to get out the window pretty easily. Doesn't get to the vehicle with the keys. Has to go back in to try to get the keys, but then takes off. And it takes off into a barn and is hiding, and then suddenly turns and sees there are a bunch of these fuckers right here. It's got to be it's not even the family. It is people he has been studying, figuring out when they come back, how they come back, what all this stuff, what motor function. It's like a pie chart thing. They're throwing a lot of shit at people. And he shines his flashlight, and they're doing the grind thing. And she basically pretends to be the wife just to get out of this situation with, people that possibly could eat her, or tear her apart in one way or another. And then she had grabbed an ice pick, by the way. She pretends to go along with this and then stabs him in the neck, so he's dead. And she takes the vehicle, drives it for a while, but then there's vehicles blocking the road because, again, Pulse Blast just kind of leveled everything and stopped everything, so vehicles can't be moved off the road. Kind of looks like Tacoma on a Friday night or on a Sunday morning. Shrieking no doubt noises. And she decides to take off on foot with an axe and a different outfit because she found it in a suitcase. And she finds she's got 40 kilometers to go to Woodbridge because that's what they do. They do the metric system over there. Even though if it's the tool of the devil, my vehicle gets 40 rods of the hog, and that's the way I likes it. And she ends up going along. She ends up crashing in an RV after taking some bodies out. And then she wakes up realizing that the dad's back awake. Because Dad hates, when the headlights are left on because they crashed the vehicle. By the way, somehow this thing is still active, which I don't understand. But anyway, even if it's only been a few days, that battery would have run out by that point. But we go outside and we see Zombie Dad trying to dig a hole and everything. Dig a hole for his family, which she helps him with. Because he's still got the cognitive function, but he also recognizes, well, I'm fucked, so she smashes him in the head with the shovel. And then she ends up at the goddamn resort quickly, very quickly. Finds Mitch even more quickly. And then finds wine glasses, one with lipstick on it, finds a badge of an employee. And I didn't see the girl's name, it doesn't really matter. And, Ava even looks in the room, sees the adjoining room, sees her. Oh, she's pretty. Well, was. And the theme of this whole thing is unfinished business. So that's why some of them come back, because there are things they did not take care of. She wants Mitch to come back to resolve this trauma, resolve this stuff. He doesn't. Now, mind you, there are a few other people from this resort wandering around, such as somebody that was named Employee of the Month. But by and large, most of them are dead. Now, she can't really get Mitch to come back. And then Clay shows up. Okay, I don't know how the hell he got there, but whatever, it's fine. And then they relax, they play in the pool, seeing Daisy Ridley in just a t-shirt and swim shorts is never a bad thing, or swim briefs, never a bad thing at all. And then there's one funny point where this one, deal is running around, and she smashes him in the face and beats him up. Because one thing I forgot to mention is a little earlier, she was actually trying to, she was wandering along some wrecked cars, and somehow did not notice this one clicker cracker, because he's cracking his teeth, chased after her, and she had to bash him across the head after getting through some, getting through like a turned over bus. So now she's trying to be more seasoned and beating people up. So Clay and her talk a little bit. They end up sharing a little bit more stuff. Clay mentions that he lost his daughter. We don't really find out that much more about him. Then they decide to leave the resort because, again, some of those places are literally on fire. And they manage to walk back or get another vehicle and drive back and then get to that particular vehicle that she left that seemingly was not taken because nobody's around. And they're driving, and they instantly run into the wife, Riley's wife. And because they saw her before, she saw her before, rather, and she was pregnant. Now she's not pregnant. She's stumbling, and she's clearly grinding the teeth, and turns and walks away, stumbles away. And suddenly Ava hears the baby. Goes off thinking, okay, we're going to see a zombie baby. We're going to get an immaculate, ending. No, the baby's fine. Further proving that life finds a way. Hey, she always wanted a baby, so I guess one from a, recently revived pulse-influenced mutant zombie, I guess, is fine. See, Mitch, if you just stuck around and not gone there, well, actually, you never would have gotten the mutant zombie baby without dying. So there you go. Deadbeat dads fuck the world. Undeadbeat dads. Should have went with that. That is it for We Bury the Dead. Not a lot of burying of the dead, oddly enough, besides a little whole part where they dump him out of a dump truck and zombie dad burying his family and then being buried himself. But yeah, that was We Bury the Dead. Not a bad movie. I wouldn't have put it on my favorite horror movies of the year list, but it's not bad. I give it a B. I thought it was entertaining enough. Thought there were some issues, but it was fine. So agree, disagree with what I said. Like, share, subscribe. Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky handles in the description. I'm John Ridley. Until we unearth more pulse-pounding dead action again, happy trails to you.